Hi, you guys. Welcome to the New Day with Natalie podcast. I am your host, Natalie Louise. I'm so happy you're here for the second part of the 4-part series where we dive into the avoidant attachment style within a variety of different relationships. So in our first episode, we talked about the avoidant attachment within friendships. And so in this episode, we are going to be talking all about the avoidant attachment style within coworker relationships, okay? So we are going to dive into the workplace and see what that is like for an avoidant attachment style person. We'll talk about the signs that you might have an avoidant attachment style within your coworker relationships. We'll talk about how an avoidantly attached person might feel when they have an avoidant attachment style and they are working in a professional business. And then finally, we'll talk about how to be more secure if you have an avoidant attachment and you work at a professional setting. All right. So let's jump right into it. So one of the first signs that you could have an avoidant attachment style when it comes to your coworker relationships is you prefer doing work by yourself versus doing work in a group and having other people beneath you. If you say group work just drags me down, there's always a lot of weaklings in the group that I'm in. And so it just would be better if I did it by myself. Or if you are in a group setting, you do everything and you just do it all because you're like, I can't trust other people. I just have to do it for myself because putting that trust into someone else is uncomfortable for you and it's your job on the line, but also it drives you crazy to have someone else do something for you. So you take care of it. You also say you just get a lot more work done on your own by yourself and you just get into the zone of genius a lot easier by yourself. So you give yourself a lot of reasons why working by yourself is better than collaborating with other people. Now, the next one is if you have an avoidant attachment style in the workplace, you are somewhat nervous when it comes to getting a promotion. And the reason why is because if you have a promotion and your manager says you've been doing great, here, I want you to be the boss of this team. You now have a team, a group of people that are under you, that rely on you. And if they screw up, you're on the line, your ass is on the line. So if you have an avoidant attachment style and you've been promoted, now you have this new responsibility of not only taking care of yourself, but also your team. And that's a lot of added stress that you don't really want because having to control people and tell them exactly what to do and trust and pray that they'll actually do it right is a lot to say and a lot to do for someone with an avoidant attachment. It's hard to trust other people to do something better than how you could do it. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs, they enjoy doing everything on their own because it's hard at first to start delegating and giving other people tasks and trusting that they'll do it okay or even better than you could. But at the end of the day, everyone knows that in order to grow and scale any business or just grow as an individual, you have to be able to collaborate with other people. You have to be able to delegate and allow other people to help you. That's how you get to the next step, okay? So if you have that avoidant attachment, it's almost like you're putting a wall up and you're like, no, it's uncomfortable. I don't like doing that. Also, if you're a boss, you then have people coming to you and saying I have a problem with this thing. How do I handle it? Or I'm getting emotional about this project. Can you take this off my hands? Or I don't know what to do about XYZ. And it's your thoughts are, why can't you just figure it out yourself? Isn't that why we're paying you? And there's a lot of judgment that goes on in your mind, just making fun of people, asking yourself, why can't they figure it out? I could figure it out. It's super easy. Are you stupid? You never say these things to people, but it's definitely what you're thinking. That is another subtle clue that you might have an avoidant attachment style in the workplace. Another one is you despise small talk or any sort of personal conversations with coworkers. This is called the water cooler talk, where you're filling up your water, getting a refill on coffee, and then your coworker's like, hey, how was your weekend? What did you do? How are you feeling? How are you doing today? Just little things like that. A lot of times, if you decide to just brush it off and just give a very small talk sort of answer where you're like, oh, it was good. How was yours? Or I didn't do much, just relaxed. How about you? That means you're being very surface level. You're not being vulnerable and you're not sharing too much with this person because you don't feel like they deserve to know what's going on in your life. You don't want to open up too much. You want to keep professional and personal totally separate. And to the point of they know nothing about you at all. all. When I had a 9 to 5 job, I remember going to these meetings with everyone in the company, and we'd all sit around this table, and like the first thing we would do before jumping into like our weekly meeting was all share what we did that weekend. And then one thing we were proud of ourselves for completing that week. And I remember just like dreading it. I was like, I don't want to share what I did over the weekend. Because at that point in time, I was trying to build up my different like side hustles, and I was trying to find something that would actually stick so that I didn't have to work a 9 to 5. And so I wasn't about to be like, so I'm building another business so that I can quit this one and have my own money and be my own boss, because I don't like working with other people, and I'd rather be on my own in my own comfortable home, and I'd rather not be here. I couldn't say that. And it was so hard to be the authentic version of me, because the real version of me hated the concept of the 9 to 5, hated going to that job. And honestly, like the people were nice, but I would never be friends with them or acquaintances with them outside of work at all. Their mindset and my mindset were completely different. And I felt so isolated. I felt like no one got me and understood me. And so why share what I did over the weekend? Like that was my thought process. It just was like a little question, but it went into this whole big thing. And that was my rationale for never sharing. It really bugged me when they were just like, so like, Natalie, tell us more. Or they would try to talk to me like, you know, in the kitchen when I was getting a refill on coffee or something. And I'm like, I don't know. I just sat at home, and like I was working on my business, and I remember some of them, like my boss would be like, you should go on dates. You should get out there. Like you should go make friends or go see your family. And I was like, I get it. Like he wants me to be social and have a community. But my mind was so set on building a business that I could actually make money from and help people. I didn't want to be in the 9 to 5. It wasn't aligned to what I wanted. So it's just like, he didn't get me. I wasn't going to be like, oh, sure, you can help me and give me advice, because he didn't understand me. So if that's how you feel, you know, when you go to work and all the people that you work with, maybe it's a 9 to 5, maybe it's just like a professional job you have, it's a side hustle, whatever it is. I get it. That's how I was too. And it's frustrating as hell, but that might just mean you have an avoidant attachment style, and there's some things you got to work through. So another sign is you feel really uncomfortable with workplace friendships or workplace events. I know the place that I worked at, there was happy hour. It was like this big building. The first floor was a bar, and the second floor and the third floor was our office. So a lot of times they'd be like, hey, everyone, we're going to go to the bar like right after work. And there couldn't be an excuse like, oh, it's too far away, or I have to work on my business after work. Like I couldn't say that. So a lot of times I felt like I was pressured or forced into going to these social events, and I did not drink at the time. So I really felt out of it. I was like really focused on my health, and I just saw no point in drinking a beer that literally tasted bad. I felt like they didn't get me. I felt like I was an outsider, and I was like, we're here to work. I'm not here to like be your best friend. It was very uncomfortable for me. And I just remember trying to get close to my coworkers, because a lot of them were like really close. It was like family almost. I couldn't do that. It was very uncomfortable. And sometimes they'd ask like deeper questions during happy hour, like, so are you dating anyone? And like, there were times that I felt like I could open up, but then I realized like I shared too much, and I felt really weird and just like, okay, I crossed the line. This is too much. And so I didn't like those happy hours. Like I really dreaded them. Honestly, like I would rather have just gone home and like been alone and like worked on my business or cooked food or like went on a walk, been more productive than going to a happy hour with people that I didn't necessarily love. A lot of times it's like you feel this force because you're working a 9 to 5 job, and if you don't do these things, you're like X'd because you're not a social person. So they have to decide, who are we going to fire? Oh, let's fire the person that's not even trying to be a part of our community. But the thing is, most people are faking it. It's all a fake act. Like I could go on a rant for this whole concept of the 9 to 5 and what it's like in America, but like most people in the workplace hate their job, and most people in the workplace hate each other. So it's like, it's so hard when you have that avoidant attachment style in the workplace to fake or just be inauthentic to your coworkers. It seems like a waste of energy and time. So a lot of times avoidants just distance themselves altogether. Like, I couldn't do it. I literally could not do it. I went to some of the happy hours, but I would leave early. I was like, I gotta go. I gotta catch a train. But I actually wasn't catching a train. I just wanted to go home. Yeah. And then they make you feel bad for not going, or they make you feel bad for leaving early, or they make you feel bad for arriving like 5 minutes after you're supposed to be there. It's just crazy. No one actually works the full 9 to 5 hours. Like, there's no way in hell. Another sign you might have an avoidant attachment style in the workplace is you strictly keep all of your interactions professional, and you really try to not mix in any like emotional distress or like mix in any of your life updates or things like that. Like, you like to keep work and personal lives totally separate. You like to keep work and how you emotionally feel totally separate. Like, you want to show up as like very pleasant and not cause any drama, not bring any conflict, not confront anyone. Like, you just want to go there, do the job, get money, get out. That was definitely how I felt. Like, I did not want to share anything personal. I wanted to keep business and personal, and that was it, because anything else like depleted my energy and just made me feel like so fake, and I hated it. It's like I became a different person at work that I hated, and so it just made me hate my life that much more. Then the next one is you might struggle to ask for help or delegate tasks if you are a boss, or maybe if you're on a team. Normally you could ask someone else to like take something for you or cover you for something, and you don't feel comfortable doing that. So what you do is just take full control of the project. It's kind of what I mentioned in the beginning, but more so like when it makes sense to delegate, or when it makes sense to like work with someone else for their input, you try not to ask for help because you want to figure it out yourself. And asking for help can kind of seem like you failed and you're not smart or you're not good enough. And so it's like you're judging yourself in a really unhealthy way. You distance yourself more and more from other people, and you become less of a team player. And then your boss doesn't like you and your company doesn't like you because you're not a team player. But at the end of the day, if your output is just as good as everyone else's that works with other people, like that should be a good thing, because that means they need less people to get one thing done. Another thing you might do if you have an avoidant attachment style in the workplace is avoid conflicts altogether, or like confrontation altogether. So if you're in a meeting and there's something like you disagree with, and you're like, that was done incorrectly, or they should do this or that, or add this, instead of like opening your mouth and saying like, hey, I want to stop this meeting right here and say something, I feel like that was done terribly, and I have another idea that could work better. Saying those words is very intimidating and uncomfortable if you have that avoidant attachment style. One, because you have to be vulnerable and emotional when you first say like, hey, I feel this way about a thing. And then second, you have to be confident enough that your idea is better than whatever way they're doing it right now. And then also put yourself on the chopping block for rejection, because they could just be like, no, I don't agree with you, like on to the next person, or like continue your conversation, like you need to stop talking. And so that can make you feel like shit. So you're risking rejection, and you're risking being too emotional where you feel extremely uncomfortable that you've shared too much and now you need to quit because they know too much about you, or you've shared something that is a terrible idea. Now everyone's going to judge you and think you're not smart. Last thing is you might feel really annoyed or just overwhelmed when your coworkers start to come up to you and like ask for emotional support. So I remember like when I worked at the bank, like I had some really great friends that made that job like actually like a job I could survive. And there were times when like we got way too close and we're sharing way too much with each other, like getting way too personal. And I remember there were moments where I was like, this is too much. Like they're asking me for advice and I just want to do my job. Like this has gotten like way too close and personal, and like this is no longer a work relationship. This is something else. And now it feels like a responsibility. Like it's too much. So when those type of relationships start to develop in the workplace, you might feel annoyed, especially if you're a boss and someone comes up to you and says like, this person's bothering me, or I'm, overwhelmed with this project or whatever, then that could be something that could frustrate you, overwhelm you, versus someone within a secure attachment that's just like, okay, let's figure out how to solve the problem. Like if you have an avoidant attachment style, you're just like, figure it out yourself. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. That's how I always felt with my friends. Like they were super sweet and nice. Like I just called them friends. Like that's what it felt like. We were coworkers. Like we literally worked at a bank. But for some reason, it just felt like it was like a closer, deeper relationship. And like, I love all of them still, but I just remember feeling like this is it was a lot of pressure, to like be in that group and show up and like continuously share really personal things. Because once you open that door to personal things, then they always expect those type of updates. So you've set yourself up for a very uncomfortable relationship if that's not what you want. So those are just some clues that you might have an avoidant attachment style in the workplace. This might pertain to a lot of you guys. Again, I know this series might be kind of eye-opening and shocking for you to realize that you are an avoidant. You are the thing that you hated the most or like despised the most. But just like I say in all of my videos and all of my podcasts and all of my one-on-one sessions, your attachment style is not permanent and you can always work through it to become more secure. So let's talk about what avoidants feel when they are in the workplace and they realize like, I have an avoidant attachment style. It can sometimes feel like you have friends, like you have a stable group of people that you can always go to that are always there, okay? Like no matter how you feel, they're always there. So it's nice. It feels like you have community, but it's not really community. It's like your coworkers. You also feel some level of anxiety when it comes to these relationships because you then have to, like when you transition from a work relationship to a friendship, but you still work together, you then have to start opening up a little bit more and start crossing the line of like, okay, this is professional life, but now we're starting to share like friendship stuff and just like personal life stuff. So it's uncomfortable to cross or like fill that gap. So it feels like they're constantly balancing between like, let's be friends, let's be professional, but also like, let's be coworkers, but also friends and also kind of share, but not too much. And it just feels like you don't want to give too much because if you do, it can feel like you have crossed the line. Avoidantly attached people can really feel like there's a lot of forced relationships in the workplace. And so there's a lot of forced connections that come with it. And so if you have to put a smile on your face and just be this happy, bubbly person and everyone knows you is like, hi, I love this job. This is what I love. This is my life purpose. And like, you're always happy, but inside you're like, what the fuck? Like, I'm just here to make money and like and kiss your ass because I'm trying to climb the ladder and make money. Like, it's hard to be inauthentic for so long. Like that starts to become your identity and it really doesn't sit well. At least like that's how it felt for me. It can really feel like the friendships you make in the workplace are also very fake because everyone's just trying to survive. Everyone's trying to just get the money and go home. But making friends makes it feel a little bit more manageable. So the people that you do become friends with, it can feel like they don't actually like you. They're just there being nice because we're all trying to survive. That can feel really shitty. And again, kind of feel like it's a balancing act between like, do I be authentic? Do I make a connection? Or do I just remain professional? I always struggle with that. Another thing that avoidant attached people feel in the workplace is feeling like a lonesome wolf, okay? I always say this with like romantic relationships. If an avoidant ever says that I'm a lonesome wolf, that's probably a red flag that they are very uncomfortable in romantic relationships and you're gonna have to work together very closely to figure it out. But in work relationships, it's different. That's kind of how I identified myself within my work relationships. I just did my stuff alone. I worked alone. I picked the offices that were empty. I picked the meeting rooms that were empty. Like, I didn't really want to talk to people at all. Like, it was a good day when I went to work and I didn't have to really see or talk to anyone. I know that sounds really bad and kind of like isolating, but it felt good to me. And again, it's because I had that avoidant attachment style when it came to work relationships. Now I'm my own boss, so I don't really like work with anyone. So maybe I still am an avoidant when it comes to work relationships. It can feel like no one gets you, no one understands you. Like the things you're trying to do with life is not what they're trying to do. The mindsets are totally different. And so it just feels like you have to separate yourself, because if you get too close to them, then you're going to like start going down that path, and that's not what you want. You kind of just isolate and become that lonesome wolf. At the same time, feeling isolated, feeling misunderstood feels like shit. So it's like, you're isolating yourself, but also some days it's like, I do want to talk to people. I do want connections. Like, why am I doing this to myself? It's like you're struggling with the paradox of wanting connection, but then also fearing the vulnerability that comes with that connection. People with an avoidant attachment style within the workplace, they definitely value professionalism and they value working by themselves and being independent. That was definitely me, okay? Which can make those type of people great workers, right? They're efficient, they get things done, right? But this can also create huge barriers when it comes to effective teamwork, because if you have to work together, sometimes people with an avoidant attachment style just don't want to do that, okay? Or their work that is created and the output is a lot worse than it could have been. Avoidantly attached people in the workplace may unintentionally come across as very cold, very isolating, very like mean or rude, or just like disinterested in their job or just the people that they're talking to. But in reality, what's going on is those avoidantly attached people are just trying to protect themselves and just try to find some level of autonomy so that they can feel safe and secure within their job in the professional workplace that they have to go to every single day. Let's talk about how to become more secure within the workplace, okay? And just be more secure in your coworker relationships. The first tip I have for you is, again, this is what I always say, take small steps towards real connection, okay? If your coworkers are like, what'd you do this weekend? Instead of just giving like, bullshit answers, oh, nothing much, what about you? Try to give a little bit more, just like tiny pieces of information. Oh, I cooked myself a great salmon in the air fryer. What about you? And then just see how that feels. It doesn't have to be too much. See if it's overwhelming, and then take a little bit more of a bigger step next week, okay? Another tip I have for you is to try to reframe your mindset towards working in a team or collaborating with others as not a weakness, but actually a strength. Because if you work with other people and you start to see that, okay, they have ideas, they could actually kind of help things and I can check it or audit it, we could actually get a lot more done, or we could have a lot more great ideas. It's like when you change your mindset towards group work, all of a sudden you might appreciate it a little bit more. Another thing I would recommend is set boundaries that you feel comfortable with. So if you are just like, for screw having friends in the workplace, like I can't do it, that was something that I had to do, just decide like, keep your coworker relationships as professional. Don't share personal and like too much personal information where it's like now they're your friend, because then you don't have to cross the line of like what's going on, are they being real with me? Like you don't have to do any of that, okay? So I always kept all my relationships very professional, and that was that. Another tip I have for you is to acknowledge that you might be uncomfortable sometimes in the workplace and like know that your avoidant attachment style is speaking, but try not to avoid connection. Try not to avoid all the happy hours. Try not to avoid those conversations, because sometimes, those social interactions at happy hours can just feel really uncomfortable and weird and like you have better things to do. But sometimes like leaning into that discomfort is better than just completely shutting down and like disengaging, because it could lead to a promotion. It could lead to, getting help on a project, or like getting something done, or like getting more money, or getting a bonus or something like that. Little things you do now that are uncomfortable could lead to something bigger down the road. That is it for this episode, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is the second episode of a 4-part series. Stay tuned for the next 2 episodes. If you missed the first episode, which was all about avoidant attachment style and friendships, be sure to go to last week's episode and check that out. Next week, we'll be talking all about the relationship between an avoidant attached parent and a child, okay? So that is it for this episode. If you guys have a very specific relationship issue and you need my advice, feel free to sign up for a one-on-one relationship advice call down below. I'll leave a link for that. Also, if you're interested in working on your attachment style and just being more secure, I did write a book all about how to heal your attachment style and become secure. So I'll leave a link for that book down below as well, which is on Amazon. That is it for this video, you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.